I know that all of you know that within approximately 8 months, the American people will have a new president. And the result of the elections will affect us all in some kind of way. But until then, until the actual elections, the campaigns and the special science surrounding the campaigns, they are interesting for all of us also. And the marketing process will affect and interest the rest of the world. Therefore, I'm very happy to be able to introduce a person who has worked alongside great American visionaries, such as President Clinton, such as Senator Kennedy, and the president candidate, Senator Bernie Sanders. Kim Taylor from Austin, Texas. Welcome to Luleå and Norrbotten Media Week.
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Well, I'm going to start off by showing you this video.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say in one sentence or less what... you know what I mean. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Will?
The New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world?
Well, Lewis and Sharon said it. Diversity and opportunity and freedom and freedom.
I'm not letting you go back to the airport without answering the question.
Well, our Constitution is a masterpiece. James Madison was a genius. The Declaration of Independence is, for me, the single greatest piece of American writing. You don't look satisfied.
One's a set of laws and the other's a declaration of war. I want a human moment from you. What about the people? Why is America
Not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about, fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of her paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose.
If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always?
Hey, and with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom?
Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain,
Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yet you, sorority girl,
just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day,
there's some things you should know. And one of them is there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people.
We sacrificed, we cared about our neighbors, we put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
So the reason I chose to show you that video is because it epitomizes everything I'm going to talk to you about today. It talks about elections, it talks about the leaders in our country, it talks about youth, and how greatly disenfranchised people in America are feeling right now. But he also, at the end, gives us some hope. As most of the world would agree, except for the Republican candidates currently, America is not the greatest country in the world. Just this morning, a BBC report, I was watching BBC this morning on television to get the news about New Hampshire primaries last night, and the reporter said that the top Google search about Americans is, why are Americans so stupid? And I think that really comes from the discourse that the whole world is seeing right now happening at the United States. Our political system is broken currently. Last year, Time magazine reported that a staggering 66% of Americans do not believe that they're being represented in the federal government. And 86% feel that the political system does not serve the interests of the people. This directly affects our ability to govern at home and abroad. It affects how we handle health care, how we handle infrastructure, and foreign policy. Part of our problem is voter turnout in the United States. Voter turnout in the United States in the 2012 election was 57.5% of the eligible voters. That was a decline from 2008, one of the greatest, the highest on record in recent history, as you can see. In 2008, we had, turnout in 2000 was 54.2%. In 2004, 60.4%. 2008, a high of 62.3%. And then it declined again in 2012. And as you all can probably remember, 2008 was the election of hope and change, where Obama was elected. In 2000, and I think most people, I've had a lot of questions since I arrived yesterday about the elections, and I think most people are very disenchanted with what they're seeing. I've had a number of people ask me about Trump, whether or not he's going to get elected. And one of the things I'm going to explain today is most people in America don't pay much attention to the elections. What you're seeing are those few on the fringe of either side, the right or the left, the extreme Republican right wing of the party and the extreme Democratic left wing of the party. Those are the people that get involved early on in elections. Most people in America don't pay attention to the presidential elections until about 5 weeks before the general election. With 76% of the public no longer believing in the two major parties, they don't believe that they can fix the dysfunction of the current political situation. What you're seeing is the independents taking over. And the extremes are appealing to the American people, which may very well be the only motivator that gets them to the polls this election. As you can see, social media is the new medium for political campaigns. With its quick, witty headlines and subtitles and sound bites, social media is creating new rules for campaigns. And you can see a few of the headlines here. I apologize, I did this two nights ago. So Sanders closing in Clinton's national polling lead as New Hampshire votes yesterday. Donald Trump basically called Ted Cruz, and I'll let you figure that one out on your own. Clinton attacks on Sanders. But these are all things that we picked up from social media, from Facebook and Twitter. And what I'm here to tell you today is that social media is the new medium for politics. Twice before in American history have media mediums had a great impact on elections. In the 1920s, it was radio, and radio helped to get FDR elected. In the 1960s, it was TV, and television gave candidates an opportunity to present their faces and become household celebrities. JFK became the first successful TV candidate. And as I said, social media is now that new medium. I'm going to show you one more video. That's going to be it. I'm going to tell you why.
A lot of people think the big news stories today are the Supreme Court debate on gay marriage and the big snowstorm that's hitting the Midwest. But I checked out local news across the country, and apparently there's an even bigger story that is sweeping the nation right now. Take a look.
In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take some of the spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year. Economic factors may take the spring out of the step of the Easter Bunny.
It's always scary to me. Yeah. What a coincidence!
So what you're seeing is, over the last 10 years, really, with campaigns, I've been campaigning about 25 years of my life, and what you're seeing is major corporations are taking over our news media outlets. And so you get that. You get CNN's news source provides headlines to 800 stations. As you see, ABC, CBS, Fox and News provide news to over 200 affiliates. And it's the same news feed, the same information fed to hundreds and hundreds of outlets all across the nation. And so there's not a lot of diversity and, quite frankly, not a lot of news. So people are resorting more and more to non-traditional news sources. And you see that ever since the so-called Facebook election of 2008, Barack Obama won. And he was a trendsetter in using social media to connect with the public. But his race against Hillary Clinton was nothing like this election's field of candidates, as you know. Hillary announced her race on Twitter. Ted Cruz live streams all of his appearances. Marco Rubio does Snapchat stories on a daily basis. And even grumpy old Bernie Sanders has over 2 million Facebook likes, leading the New York Times to dub him the king of social media. And then, of course, there's Trump, with his outrageous late-night tweets, name-calling and spouting hatred over Twitter and Facebook. Trump knows the best way to dominate the news. He doesn't have to pay for it. He can get those sound bites, and the AP picks up that story, and it's said over and over and over again. He just last week was bragging to one of the news reporters that he thought he would have spent $50 million by now in his campaign of his own money, but he hasn't had to spend that because that happens. He knows that the best way to dominate the online discussion is not to inform, but to provoke. However, it is indicative of the changing dynamics of political races. Is it any wonder that Feel the Burn has become a rallying cry for the Sanders campaign? Emotional appeals can be good for politics. They can spur civic involvement, even among disenfranchised voters. What you'll see right now on both sides. On the right, you see many, many people now for the first time getting involved in the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primaries, and you'll see it next Saturday in Nevada and the following Saturday in South Carolina. People who have never been engaged before are now getting engaged thanks to social media. But of course, there's a dark side, and that's what you're seeing in Trump. Trump's popularity took off once he announced his anti-Mexican immigration stances, playing on the public fears, and now he's using the Middle East unrest to do the same. He used a demagogue's oldest tactics, and it has worked thus far. Social media is different from traditional views. Traditional news. So, the largest study to date was an election day in 2000 about political turnout in social media. It was the congressional midterms, and they took a study sample of 60 million voters in the United States. Facebook users were shown messages at the top of their news feed, and they were encouraged them to vote, pointed them to the poll places, offered place to click I voted, and also shared messages when their friends did the same. And they also took two smaller groups in that same day. They took about 600,000 were given voting encouragement, but nothing else. And another 600 were given no data whatsoever. The researchers conclude in that study that there was a number of implications. First and foremost, that online political mobilization works. It induces political self-expression, but it also validates voter turnout, because friends are validating one another. Previous research has suggested that online mobilization does not work, but I really think, and I think this study proves that, is the sample sizes just simply weren't big enough. One of the things that they noticed is that their strong relationships much more influential 4 times than that of the message itself. That if you know your friends are voting and you know who your friends are voting for, that impacts whether or not you vote and who you vote for. It's impacted by 4 times more than just a political ad or political message. Turnout has been growing in the midterms from 36% in 2002 to 37.8% in 2010. And this researchers believe that possible growth, at 0.60% growth in turnout from 2006 to 2010, may have been caused by a single Facebook message. So essentially, what I want to tell you is just that the new medium for politics in the United States, and my guess is probably throughout the world, is going to be the social media messaging cycle. It's going to look a lot like traditional media, except for it's a continuous cycle. It's 24/7. And the messages, your sound bites are a lot smaller. And you have these 3 components. And of those components, you have the head and tail messaging. The head and tail messaging is like the one thing I want my audience to know. Positive tone, expressive in nature, and highly quotable. You know, Trump knew when he said that he was going to make Mexico build the wall, that was going to be, that every, pardon this expression, I guess ignorant American would repeat what he said. Like, we're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to build a wall. And it worked. Fact and figure, uncommon information most people wouldn't know. Honestly, you see this a lot now in American politics. They'll just throw out facts, whether they're true or not. So people will quote them and sound like they're more informed. I don't want to sound completely discouraging about this, though. One of the things that social media has done, when you see the media that I showed you earlier in the video, it's really very discouraging. But if you look at social media and Facebook, and there are certain news outlets that are only online now in the United States, there's some really good information. And so I'm telling you the dark side, but there was a really good side to that too, because it gives people who didn't have the opportunity to be more informed now. And it's really, most of our American voters are smarter than we're giving them credit for currently. And quite frankly, because those aren't the ones that are voting now. They'll really dig in, and come July and September, they'll start doing their research online, and they can decipher from a lot of it, which is quite frankly one of the reasons I can explain for Bernie Sanders' success, because I think people believe him. He's believable, and they want to believe in their elected officials. So fact and figures, uncommon information, most people don't know. Like I said, specific numbers, you throw out percentages, and that responds to the best questions you might get. And then people and place messaging, short stories with counterintuitive ending. You know, there's the, I'm trying to give an example. There's in 2008, Hillary Clinton won the New Hampshire primaries. And she was losing in the polls up until about 2 days beforehand. And she started talking about, she started telling a story. And in her story, and I can't even tell you what the story is about, but you know, what I can tell you is for the first time that, first and only time I think during that election cycle, she teared up. And from that, which was the unexpected, with that, Hillary Clinton won the New Hampshire primary in 2008. And that's it, crafted with emotional outcome, response to the worst questions you might get. So factors of a successful digital campaign. Again, determine what you should write about and what you should not write about. You'll often see people on social media trying to write like they would write an essay, and those don't get read. You really, people are inundated with media messages now and with just information in general. So really have to be concise and clear about what you're writing about. Apply traditional journalism techniques. Get out in the world, talk with people, and get a sense of what matters to them. I think, again, I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing Bernie Sanders resonate with people, is because most people don't really think about foreign policy in the United States on a daily basis. What they think about is how are they going to feed their kids? How are they going to pay for college? How long is their job going to last? Are they going to get laid off? Those are the kinds of things that resonate with people, and that's why you're seeing him be so successful. And Trump on the same side. I mean, he talks about he's going to make America great again, and he's going to create jobs. So that's really getting everyone's attention. The other thing is to tell a good story. Do not write ad copy. You have to tell a story. People want to know that your candidate or issue is connecting with people, that they can connect with your candidate or issue. Stop looking for some magical viral campaign. That happens naturally. Someone today mentioned the ice water bucket viral campaign. That was totally by accident. They had no idea that was going to take off. ALS had no idea that was going to take off worldwide. And I think it was a Swede that mentioned that to me earlier today. So I found that interesting. Focus on the here and now, and best will take care of it itself. Look for stories that tie into current trends and fit within the brand framework. And don't be afraid to use controversial topics. Repurpose content. You want to repackage stories in different formats, figure out where your readers are, and take the message to them. As you can see, the message is going to be spread far and wide if you send it to the regular networks, so you want to make sure that you have a different story that people are going to be interested in. Develop content that's able to be easily amplified. And then measure content against outcome metrics. Focus on analytics, to your buzz that you're getting and the impact. Mine the numbers for the best performing outcome content. And then the metrics again, consumption metrics, views or engagement. How many people are clicking and engaging on what you're posting online. Your sharing metrics, your likes are shared. How many people, you can connect with 60,000 people, but through that you can reach 300,000 people. Lead generation metrics, often does content result in a lead? This is relevant for retail, but it also works in politics as well, because it saves you money, quite frankly. Campaigns in America are really expensive, and so the more that someone likes or shares your content online, the less money you have to spend. And then the sales metric, which is basically assigning specific calls to action. Can you get people engaged? Can you get them to volunteer? Can you get them to share your information? Can you get them to come to town hall meetings? Can you get them to come and caucus for you, the Iowa caucuses? And that's pretty much it. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for some questions and answer periods, and I'm here to talk about anything you want to talk about. This was just sort of what was on my mind about social media. But I'm here to answer any questions about anything you'd like to talk about. Yes.
Just mistakes made on social media. I don't understand the social for everyone. Is it possible to make a mistake?
Well, yesterday it was Fox News declared Trump the winner a full hour before the polls closed. And had the order that they did it in was they did Trump, and then I believe it was Rubio and someone else, and it ended up the actual results had Kasich up at the top, well, right below Trump, but with Trump with much lower turnout. And that does have that has consequences, because once it gets out there, you can't take it back. You see that Gloria Steinem, I spent a year in 2004 traveling the country with Gloria Steinem. Do you all know who Gloria Steinem is? She's a famous, iconic feminist who really helped the women's movement in the 60s and 70s. Well, has ever since the 60s, really. And she, just last week, made a comment when she was pressed by Bill Maher, a talk show host, about the young women were following Bernie. He kept saying, why are young women not going for Hillary? Why are they going for Bernie? Why are they going for Bernie? And she said, well, because all the young boys are on Bernie's campaign. And social media went nuts. And she, within 24 hours, had to retract her statement. I felt for her, because she really is an incredible human being and has advanced the women's movement in the United States by leaps and bounds. And she truly hurt, and hurt Hillary's campaign for it as well. Anything else? Oh, come on.
I have a question about what you call mimetic communication.
I'm sorry?
Mimetic communication, memes.
Oh, the mimetic communications, yes.
Do you see it as a problem of delivering an actual message?
I don't use them. I know people that do. Honestly, because when you do the memes, it's hard to find people who can do them with good quality, people that are very short. People's attention span, again, very short. I like to believe that I'm very well read when it comes to what's happening in American politics, and I can't keep up with everything. And often I know that there are some good ones, but you'll see a lot right now with Bernie Sanders doing dances, and they work, I guess, or else I wouldn't use them, but I don't tend to use them very often.
Wouldn't you say that feel the burn is a mimetic communication?
Yeah, well, yes, okay, yes, yeah, that definitely, quite frankly, I'm not crazy about feel the burn. It's working, and they keep using it, and the media's using it. That didn't come out of the campaign. That actually came out of a movement aside from the campaign, but the campaign has since adopted it. So it is working. It is working. I guess I see a lot in the Republican side that it just sort of turns me off, so I don't tend to use them.
Hi. Could you talk a bit about the importance of winning in New Hampshire? Has anything changed? Could it be that this is not that important anymore? Otherwise, the winning for Trump is...
Right. Well, Hillary Clinton would be president right now if New Hampshire told you who won the primaries. You know, it's really hard to predict right now because of social media. It is it's a game changer. No one would have ever predicted that Donald Trump would still be in the race at this point. But quite frankly, I didn't think that Barack Obama was going to be in the race at the end. Barack Obama was my third. First I was John Edwards, and I was Hillary Clinton, and then supporting Barack Obama. He was my third choice because, quite frankly, I didn't think he was electable. But it tells you what I know. But I think New Hampshire just demonstrates your organizational ability, and I think that you're going to see. So I don't know if you'll know. We have Nevada next, and then we have South Carolina. And then we have, on March 1st, we have 14 states that will vote, and they call that Super Tuesday. And Super Tuesday, that's really where you're going to, that makes or breaks candidates. We're going to narrow the field to 4 or 5. But this is going to go all the way through May. Texas is going to be voting for Hillary or Bernie. And so will a number of the other later states. It's, again, it's organizational, and I think that, and I've been saying to people, because I've worked for Bernie. I've worked for Bernie for 10 years. And his appeal for common people to the general public is cross party lines, but it's also, he makes people want to work for him. And right now I think Hillary Clinton's having a hard time getting people to be energized about her and to want to work for her in that manner. Donald Trump is not going to be president. Right here, you can call me. He is not going to be president. If he is, I'm going to be looking for a place in Sweden to live. So, he's not. The American people aren't as stupid as the media portrays us to be.
I would love to have you here otherwise.
Well, thank you.
What about this Marco Rubio? Can he have this comeback?
If Marco Rubio is their nominee, it's going to be really hard for either Democrat to win. Because in the last 240 years, a Democrat hasn't won 3 times in a row. It's just historically. Voters are they like to balance things out. And so, which is why you never see Congress run by all Democrats or all Republicans for more than 2 years, because they like things to be balanced. So, which is why I don't think Donald Trump has a chance. It does. It does. But this needed to happen. We needed a revolution. My revolution class in college was one of my favorites, because anybody who's ever studied revolutions knows to have any real impactful change, sustainable change, you have to have the extremes. And you have to have people who, you have to have a revolution, and you have to wake people up, and that's what this has done, good or bad. It's for as much as people like to hate Trump, he's waking people up, and he's helping mobilize people on the left that this would have been a ho-hum election to most people. It really would have. I mean, most people, Hillary's going to be the candidate, and But, so I do give him credit for that. But again, he's not going to be president. Any more?
A question. 50% of the population in the United States are not voting. So there are 50% of the votes that are not active. Is there any chance to do some campaign to get those votes, bring their card, and go and vote?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I hope social media will help do that. A lot of the conservatives that are in power want status quo, so they don't want, we have certain states that have voted by mail, and we have much higher voter turnout. We have 72, 74% voter turnout in Oregon, which has had vote by mail for the last 10 years. But Texas won't do it. They're they're trying to find ways to make people not vote. So that helps. I think social media helps. We should all be able to vote electronically, quite frankly. We can pay our taxes electronically. We can do all sorts of things. Our banking electronically. We should be able to vote electronically.
But do give them some incentives to do some campaign, because they are sleeping votes that you could attract.
Yeah. We have to do a better job of educating our voting population.
Is there a certain type of population that don't bring out is it the middle class or the lower class?
That doesn't vote?
Is it,
Well, so in Harris County, which is the largest county in the country, it's around Houston, and it has the largest population, the fastest county in the country, and they currently have about, on an off-year election, the midterm election, about 23% of their population votes, and it's a very multicultural county, and it's the Asian population typically and the Hispanic population that don't vote. It's not built into their culture to be civically engaged, whereas the African Americans in that county do vote, and vote at same rates or even higher than Caucasians, because they know what it's like to not have had the vote, and they've had to struggle in the United States, so they tend to vote more. And it's just about changing the culture, which I think these revolutions do. The revolution that we're having that we're seeing currently. I think Bernie's saying, you want free education? Guess what? You're going to have to vote for it.
Do you think that some kind of the Hispanics, could they feel like sort of the loyalty towards this build the Mexican?
We saw that in, I'm trying to remember which election was that. Was that 2008, whenever they started, the Republicans started talking about immigration, and there was a real mobilization in Hispanics, especially there were some statewide initiatives like in California and others to take away rights, and so there was some real mobilization around that. And then the DREAM Act is what we call to allow children who are born from non-citizens, or aren't born in the United States and then they're brought over, to give them the opportunity to become citizens legally. That has mobilized a lot of people, but the Republican-controlled Congress has effectively killed that this time around. They're not really doing much of anything, which is one of the reasons. Right now, cockroaches poll higher than Congress does in the United States. I'm not kidding. I think it's something like 8%. They have an 8% approval. Their approval rating is way down because of things like that. But again, which is why we have the revolution. I think that's happening.
Maybe I have a last question.
Okay.
I wonder how does it work when you run a campaign? Or is this a full-time job for you, or 25%? Or how do you work?
Well, I actually, the last campaign that I helped with, that I helped advise, was the mayor's race in Austin, which our mayor, he knows our mayor very well, and I did that on a volunteer basis. When I moved to Austin and started having children, I pulled back on my full-time campaigning. Yes, campaigning can be a 20-hour-a-day job for a year plus nowadays, and it feels like we're campaigning continually now. So I leave that to the younger people. I'll advise on campaigns, but I'm no longer working on campaigns full-time.
No. Okay. Yes. Is there any other last question? Otherwise, I think we have to move on.
I had one. You said before, when you put something out, it's there. You can never take it away. But how long does our memories tend to stretch for digging in old things?
Right.
Is the collective memory getting shorter and shorter?
Oh, I believe it is. It is, and that's, I think, why Trump scares people, because he says things like, "Don't you remember when he said that remark about?" But But what's happening is the opposition, if you have good opposition, they keep digging it out, and they keep replaying it, and they keep putting it out there. I mean, that's what any good campaign would be doing. And that's why opposition research is what we call it as a big business in the United States, because you're continually pulling it out, and putting it back out there, which is a lot of what you saw, unfortunately, with the Gloria Steinem situation. They kept replaying it and replaying it and replaying it. So, but yeah, definitely our attention spans are much shorter now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.